So remuneration, what is happening on the remuneration side? Show me the money, as we like to say. Now, we're going to run through what we're seeing from a remuneration point of view, but it is worthwhile putting out here a rather large disclaimer because we do see even greater variation on salaries, especially at the executive side. What industry you're in does have an impact on your salary, the size of the business, the complexity, all of those factors all play a part. So we've taken the average from the last 680 roles that we've worked across a whole range of different accounting positions. So the average salary increase that we've seen across roles in Sydney has been 4.9%. And if we look at the base salaries for support workers, which is really more that transactional side, we can see here that accounts payable has stayed pretty similar, hasn't moved too much, although they still remain very hard roles to fill. AR officers are up around 9%. Billings is up 9%. And again, is very much a specialized skill set, which is probably facing a declining workforce because people aren't really going into billings anymore. Billing managers have definitely gone up, but we've definitely seen more roles for billing managers who have some transformation skills, especially in the professional services sectors. Payroll managers are up 14%. And again, not many people are actually entering payroll as a profession, so it is a declining skill set. And the one thing which does surprise me here is payroll officers. That hasn't moved up that much, which I find surprising. Again, it is a declining profession. We don't see many young people go into payroll as a profession. However, when we have a job, it is very hard to find good quality candidates, partly because they often do tend to stay in roles. And also as well, a lot of the roles that we get often are payroll officers with a particular system, which does limit the talent pools quite a bit. If we look at the part qualified average base salaries, well, assistant accountants haven't really changed, which again, I find quite interesting because again, we have got a real reduction in graduates coming through. Maybe the volume of roles has changed because more have been offshored, hard to say. Bookkeepers, which obviously, are more roles onshore, which again, supporting small companies. This has gone up again by about 9%. Again, a little bit of a declining skill set, and we don't see many people who go into entry-level bookkeepers. The one point which is worth mentioning on the assistant accountant side is that a lot of candidates in this space are often on visas. So it does make it quite difficult to actually find, a local or someone who's on a citizen or a permanent resident in this field because most people are on a graduate student visa of some sort. If we look at the mid-level salaries, so those middle-level accounting roles like the accountant analyst type of roles, we can see here that BAs haven't really gone up too much, which does surprise me because we've had a fair few roles, especially around that sort of transformation type of work. I haven't included systems accountant roles in the BA side. It's more, I suppose, more of a traditional finance BA. Financial accountants have gone down a smidge. They obviously shot up a lot in the pandemic. They were up to about 130K plus super during 2023. Management accountants have crept up about 7%. And certainly we find more and more of these roles are asking for BI experience, especially Power BI, which seems a very popular tool to be used. Finance business partners have gone up 7%. And this is a role where, again, you can see a big salary differential. Again, some finance business partners will be earning 160, 170, depending on the industry that you're in. Some of them are in not-for-profit, which obviously would have the salary packaging figure of about 12 to 15 on top of this. So bit of a range. And if we move on to the leadership roles, so the management-based salaries. So again, we can see here that we've got the average CFO sitting at 266. Now, some of those CFO roles we've had around the early 200s could potentially be called FC roles. So this does sway the data a little bit, especially because we've had quite a few roles paying over 300K. I haven't included incentives. And interestingly, we have seen a few roles recently which have actually had an equity play in it as well, which we haven't seen for a while. Commercial manager roles haven't moved that much. And again, often we don't see that many come onto the market externally. They tend to be obviously a lot of sourced from internally because they're quite desirable roles for finance folks. Finance manager roles are up 8% to 154K. Finance controller roles are up 11% to 189K. And we've seen a pretty steady volume of these two positions. FP&A manager roles are up to about 193K, obviously found in larger organizations, and you do tend to find people do tend to stay in these roles a little bit longer. So again, quite interesting figures, but you do see big variables on these roles based on the industry and the size of the organization. If we look at the temp side, which again is quite an interesting factor really to bear in mind, our temp team place over about 200 roles every year, and the hourly rates give us a good glimpse into the cost of available talent at the moment. Bear in mind that historically you would often receive a 25% casual loading on your hourly rate. So we can see here, AP clerks have gone up by 18% in the last 12 months to $46 an hour plus super. Now, again, this is probably equating to about 82, so not a massive casual loading there to compensate for that lack of annual leave and stuff. Assistant accountants are up by 9%. Financial accountants haven't really gone anywhere. Now, when I've done my research here, the reason for this is we often feel that we have all of the newly qualified CA first-time movers from the Big Four over here in Sydney. We're convinced there's no one left in Dublin or the UK at the moment. So it has meant with a lot of supply, it's meant that rates have stayed pretty low. Management accountants are about 13% more than what they earned a year ago, and payroll officers are up 12%. And again, the temp team will tell me that to find a payroll officer, especially for a short-term assignment, is very slim pickings. Long-term, not so bad. Perm, not so bad, but short-term, rather challenging, to be honest with you. So let's look at the skill sets that are most in demand. Well, for CFOs and senior finance folk, it is really about leadership. Few CFOs, FCs tell us they actually receive proper leadership development and training. We know this is detrimental to the organization as many CFOs become great CEOs. So if you are a finance leader, I would really be pushing to get some external training to give you some new ideas. In a recent University of Sydney Skills Horizon report, they described the next decade as the messy decade, which is full of ambient uncertainty. And they highlight a couple of issues for leaders. One is, how do you handle the different generations? And you'll be working with multiple generations. And we do know that different generations have very different ideas around working arrangements, different motivations. They have different timeframes for progression as well. So a fair few challenges there. They do describe that leaders actually need to really work on their stability and calmness. There's a lot of external noise going on all around us. So it's a question of, how can you be a strong mentor? How can you be a really good developer of people? And do you need to find some quite creative ways of working with the multiple generations? Do you need to educate people through TikTok videos? Do you need to do your performance reviews on Snapchat? I mean, who knows? It's quite baffling to think about this, but it is a factor that leaders need to bear in mind. If you wish to find out any further information, please go to our website or get in touch with one of our consultants after you've watched this. We'd love to help you out, and we look forward to hearing from you.